Welcome to the Startup Grind.
All right, guys, I want to thank you all for coming to Cowork Memphis tonight for our May edition of Startup Grind. This is it's a big month for us. Google for Entrepreneurs has always supported Startup Grind, but this month is our hashtag, our 40 Forward. I know that all of you have information on that. You're familiar with that program, and we're excited to be a part of it here in Memphis. So we've got some girl power going on in the room tonight, and I want to, again, just thank you all for being here. We'll let Kim come on up, but as she comes up, I'm going to ask everybody to stand up and give a round of applause for Kim.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks
so
you,
much
Lauren.
for joining us. Just so everybody knows, my name is Lauren Squires. I am a reporter with Action News 5 here in Memphis. I'm also involved with the startup community in Memphis. And we have a wonderful guest. I'm going to let her introduce herself because she knows herself better than me. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and kind of what brought you here tonight.
Okay. Well, I'm Kim Heathcott. I grew up in Memphis and spent some time after college in Dallas in the finance business. And life events brought me back to Memphis. I met my husband long distance and came back here 18 years ago. And I did some entrepreneurial type things in the finance world, and then had two wonderful children and retired from the work community. And then about 6 years ago, we came up with this concept, and I started this company in April of 2000 officially, and have been living the startup ever since.
The startup. We all know what that means, right?
The grind.
The grind. The 40
Right,
forward.
right.
Let's just first, so much about startups and any small business is your story and the storytelling side of that. Obviously, it's a security company, tech-based. Tell us sort of what led you to come up with this idea and sort of where you're at now as to where you were when you started.
Okay, great. Well, if anybody had said, what kind of business do you want to start? Starting a security guard business would not have been at the top of my list.
Right.
It seems a little random, right? But I think that, life gives you life events and puts things in front of you that just make sense at the time. And my husband had a career in finance, and he was very passionate about security when our children were small. He was worried about them and was looking for gadgets to try to protect them. And so he started looking in that world and didn't really find a gadget, but went into business with a partner in security guards. And so I watched that for a while, and then when that business kind of went another direction, he came to me and he said, what do you think about starting our own security guard company? And so I had a background in finance, and the first thing I did was a business plan, and I knew the dynamics were really great for it, and I knew that we had a concept that was very different than what was in the current market. And so those two things got me really excited. And so we just kind of took the opportunity in front of us and just ran with it.
Which is so much of what you find, right? There's a market for it, and you say, let's go after this.
Yes.
When did you take the final leap to make this a legit business, and how long have you been up and running?
Well, when I started up my office, I had to I hired my first employee and started a little starter office. I was so nervous about if the business would take off or not that I found a lease that I could break after 12 months. I thought, if this thing doesn't make it, at least I don't have to pay 3 or 5 years rent. And so we found our first employee in the office and bought our furniture, excuse me, on eBay, and then started from there.
And here you are today, fully functioning. Tell us a little bit about sort of your client base and what you're doing here in Memphis.
Okay. So from that one employee, now we have about 285 employees.
Wow.
And about 75 accounts here in Memphis. And we started very organically. We started small. In the security business, I think you have to prove yourself. Mm-hmm. But very early on, we knew that the differentiator was kind of two things: to be very employee-centric, because I say our people are a product, but yet look at the technologies that are out there and see how we could layer that in to make us more efficient and more productive in the marketplace. And those two kind of core concepts have led us to be very successful. But you know, you've got to be kind of a bulldog when you're little and start small. And I think the secret was just to prove ourselves on a small scale basis and build and build and build and build. And we're continuing to do that now, but it's starting to pay off.
I was going to say, back when you had one employee, you probably never imagined you'd have 200 today, right?
No.
I mean, we all start somewhere, right?
Exactly.
We can't ignore the fact that women are a minority when it comes to startups, when it comes to business, when it comes to corporate world. How have you found, or how have you fought that, or have you even had any struggles being the fact that you are running this business, moving forward with it, but also being a female owner?
Well, you know, women in the security business are kind of a minority in itself. Not only a woman running a company, but in my business. And you know, I think that you just kind of have to push forward a different way and get people to look at you in a different perspective. You know, I'm not a former military police type background, but I'm bringing an innovative technological spin on it. And I think that when you bring it that way, it could be a man or a woman. I think that you just have to prove yourself to be a legitimate business that is offering a great product.
So what kinds of things did you do to prove yourself? Or can you think of any scenarios where you felt like you had to push a little bit harder than perhaps someone else might because of your appearance or lack of experience or whatever is perceived by the industry?
Well, I think that just made me work harder to get to know my clients, you know, because and also to bring people on that had that experience. You know, it's definitely a team-based approach, and so I definitely have the individuals on my staff that can bring this experience in the security and the military and that sort of background. But, you know, I think that where we have strength is getting to know our clients and to tailor fit them. And you don't have to have a 25-year police background. You just have to understand what security is for that customer and how to match your product to it. And you tend to win over your customers that way.
So I would imagine you became an expert about something that you never would have imagined that you would have cared about, right? I mean, with security, there's
Absolutely.
A lot of things there.
Right.
How did you gain that knowledge? Who did you go to? We talk a lot about mentors, especially in the startup process. Did you have anyone that you went to, another woman that was in a startup or that came up with her own business?
Well, I am a huge advocate of mentorship, and I have spent my whole time as a startup seeking out mentors, getting into groups, reading books, taking advantage of programs by the SBA, getting out there in Leadership Memphis to make contacts. You name it, I've probably been a part of it. And I sought out very early on NABO, which is the National Association of Women Business Owners, and got involved with them from the beginning. I'm now the president.
I was going to say that we didn't mention your accolades, but that's absolutely
right.
And you also serve on a couple of boards. Tell us about your leadership roles.
Well, I really was involved with Commercial Real Estate Women. I was on the board there last year, but I really am devoting my time because I'm so busy. The thing about me, and when I started my business, remember I retired and I hadn't lived in Memphis in the business world. I had been in Dallas, so I didn't have the contacts, I didn't have the network, I didn't have the customer base. So I really had to start from the ground up and didn't have a lot of resources. And so that's, I think, why I was drawn to head up NABO, because for those women entrepreneurs out there that don't really know where to go to get a business plan or maybe the best marketing strategy or where to find a great business coach or to meet somebody who's already made it in the world, in the business world, that's what you can find with that organization. And so I very much want to have a thriving women business owner community where we can direct women entrepreneurs. And also, just a plug for this whole group, we're looking for collaboration. There's so much out there. You don't have to invent the wheel. It's already there. And so to go out and collaborate with organizations like this that are already there and supportive, I think that's what it's all about, and just networking amongst each other.
It really is a full-time job. In addition to your full-time job, what's your secret to networking? What do you do? I guess the old-fashioned way is to hand out a business card, give me a call. But in today's day and age with social media and all the other things we have to distract us, what's your secret to networking and getting folks interested in your stuff?
Well, I think it's putting yourself out there. I go to a lot of luncheons for different organizations. Being here, you tend to find, if you go out to events, and especially if you put yourself out there and take advantage of being a leader in an organization, I think that you tend to start meeting people out there and hearing the stories and getting to know the people, and it just builds. It just builds over time. And I think that people think that networking is like you say, I hand you your business card and I go make a call and we do business. It's not, it's a layering. It's all a part of a process.
And so much of what we do, we want it to be authentic and we want people to feel like it's authentic.
Right.
So that's the challenge too.
Yes.
And not just, I'm here to network, but I'm here to build a relationship.
Right.
We're talking about all the great things. I would imagine that there were some struggles involved. Was there ever a time where you just said, I don't think I can do this, or I'm not sure if I can go forward, or this isn't working? If so, what pulled you out of that and made you keep going forward?
Well, there's been several things. A startup is hard work, and so you tend to wear 3 or 4 hats. And sometimes, I had some difficulty early on getting the right kind of operations person. And so I brought somebody in and got them trained, and they weren't a fit. And so then I took on that role and brought in somebody else, and they weren't a fit. And it's getting the right team sometimes is frustrating, and then you have to take on that role yourself. And you will find yourself. I think we had a setback in a certain situation. You think, Am I really going to go another day? And I think that you have to go back to, why did I start this business in the first place? And do I really feel like I'm here to make a difference? And do I believe in my company? And the bottom line in all those cases were, I do, and there's got to be a better way, and I've just got to, this setback just makes me do this that much harder. Right. And, as I tell people in my company, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
It's like dancing, right?
Right.
That's how it works. In that case, do you have like a mantra or something that pushes you forward that you have on your desk, or an inspirational thing that you use that you pass along to others, or that you want to pass along to this group?
Oh, it would probably be something like just never give up. I mean, just tomorrow's another day.
That's the great part about tomorrow, right?
Right.
You screw up today, you can try again tomorrow.
Exactly.
We've got a room full of women in here, a room full of startups, different backgrounds. What advice do you have for those folks if they have an idea that they want to push forward, but they just don't know where to go next?
Well, I would say, and the thing that I probably didn't do, but I would do the next time around, is to actually go to the people that I want to purchase my product, and to put together my whole pitch, and to say, if I really had this out here, would you buy it? Would it make a difference? Is it something different than what you have? I think intuitively I knew that, but it would have been nice to get some people early on the process that could be potential purchasers earlier on.
So kind of a little bit more product discovery or client discovery in that case.
Yes, absolutely.
That tends to be the biggest challenge with startups. They have this great idea and then they find out, cool, this is a neat idea, but there's no need for it, or nobody's interested.
Right.
Which is always a roadblock. In this case, like you said, you never imagined security, right?
Right.
now have you found that you have a passion for it? Have you found that it's moving forward and you have, obviously it's a part of your daily life, but you never thought you'd be passionate about it?
Oh, I am passionate about it. And I think that 4 years into it, I really have got a feel for what I think would make us better as a company. And so I'm actually developing a software program that's completely different from the market. And I'm working with some developers, some software developers, and it's going to be proprietary. And I'm kind of betting the farm on it because I feel like there is a need for this particular technology to support the guards in the business. And I think at the end of the day, it'll be a huge win for the customers. So again, I'm always thinking, how can we do it better? How can we, clients pay a lot of money for security, and it's very important and near and dear to their heart. Right. It's their people and their assets. And so we need to take it seriously, and what can we do to deliver the best product at the end of the day that they can have? So,
how important is it for you to give back to your community? You're from Memphis, you came back to Memphis, maybe even never imagined you would, but so much of what this startup culture encourages is paying it forward. So what do you do and why do you do that to help better the community?
Well, I would say it's kind of twofold. I think obviously I'm very passionate about entrepreneurs and women especially, and I'm very encouraging of women and ideas and pushing them. But anybody who has an idea, I think that there is just that, as we were talking, I'm talking to my children about being entrepreneurial in high school, but I think at the same time too, I think, why am I in this field? And security guards is a very competitive, wage-driven business. And so I employ a lot of people who are working 2 and 3 jobs, single parents that are trying to make it, individuals that are trying to go to school to get a better job and way of life for them. And I am very passionate about doing what I can to make them have a better life. I mean, there are some small things we can do to support them out there. And so I've just gotten to know a lot of individuals who are struggling and that come to my company and look for a better employer, a better life, a better way. And I really feel like I'm giving back by caring about my people, and that's very important to me.
And what a blessing you are to this community, because we need more of that, especially in businesses, which is why we love supporting small, local startups, all those things. As far as everyone that's here, what advice do you have for them to continue pushing forward if they've started? I think there's a couple people in here who've already started or on their, they've got a business model, they've got a plan. What do they need to do next to be hiring 200 employees and to have a full outright business?
Well, I think you've got to have a great strategy and a marketing plan, and to pursue financing, because that's really important. And again, the networking thing, you just cannot discount the importance of that. And seek out the mentors and the people that can put you in touch with the right people to push forward that idea into legitimate business and successful business.
So important to surround yourself with people who can encourage you.
Yes,
and move you
very
forward.
Much so.
How have you balanced? I think this is a question I always have for women. How do you balance being a mother and running your kids around to places? I would imagine your husband helps out too, but how do you balance all that with also running a business and being in charge of 200 employees and trying to wrestle and juggle it all together?
You know what? It's all jumbled together. If I'm picking up my daughter from swim practice, I'm on the phone. She knows I'm talking about a situation. My life has just been a journey, and I think I was blessed to have been at home and not working with my children when they were young. And I think they see us working in the business and taking care of people and solving problems. But I think that gives them also the knowledge that they're not the only ones in the universe. There are other people out there. Our world doesn't just revolve around them, but we just all mix it up in our family. My husband does so much, and our work doesn't ever end, and we don't. We're in a 24/7 business anyway, so it never stops. And so I just kind of layer it all in, and somehow it all works out.
I was going to say, do you use any apps, or do you have any way to, I'm always asking people, how do you control your productivity? Do you have a to-do list or a home to-do list or work? Is there a separation?
Oh, I have found the greatest app that I have on my mini iPad that has my to-do list, and the great thing about that is when you don't do it, it carries through the next day. You don't have to keep rewriting it.
Which app is that?
Opus Mini.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Find
a
that
great
in your
one.
app store somewhere, right?
Yes.
I'm always looking for something. There's always a list.
Oh,
somewhere.
I live by it. It has got my calendar, and it's got my task and my under things, and it's a really great app. So I try to be organized, but if I can't get it all done, it continues to carry over every day.
Which is part of being a business owner,
Right.
right? Tell us a little. We talk a lot about the glass ceiling. I mean, have you reached it? Have you broken it? Are you walking on the shattered glass? I mean, talk a little bit about that. Being 4 years into this, now you're developing another program. When do you know to keep moving forward, and when do you know to just kind of let it be?
Well, I think that's the wonderful thing about entrepreneurship, because you do run your own destiny, and you don't. I guess when you're in a corporate world, you have to worry about politics, and so. But I think that when you're an entrepreneur, I think if you manage your networking and your social networking, and you have a great blend of mentors that are men and women, I think you can just keep pushing that glass ceiling as far as it can go.
Just let it set a new record, right?
Yes.
When do you know when to say no? There's, especially at the early process, when you're sort of exploring your customers, figuring out which direction you take. Sometimes people will throw something at you and say, why don't you try this angle, or why don't you go after this customer? When do you know to just say, nope, I'm going this direction and I'm not looking back?
Well, I think early on in security, I think that there's a lot of different things that you can do in the field of security. And I thought to myself, for the first 4 or 5 years of my business, I'm just going to really do security guards well. And maybe after that, we might expand and do, cameras or whatever else is out there. But I really have to figure out, really narrow it, and then make sure I have that down before I go anything out. And I would encourage people to be pretty narrow for a while.
Yeah, it's easy to get distracted.
Yes.
Having different things coming your way.
Yes.
How do you get your story out there? I think the fact that you're local, you're a female business owner, depending on the different platforms, television or newspaper, you don't want to just flat out. It can't just be an advertisement. So how do you get your product out there in a way that tells your story and maybe gets people calling you? That's perhaps the news angle as opposed to paying for advertising.
Right. Well, we've done it a lot of different ways. Very early on, because we had no name recognition and one salesperson, we did engage a PR marketing campaign just to get us out there. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we took advantage of programs like the Small Business Awards, and really got our name out there and with groups, and got some publicity out of that. And right now, I think that what we're trying to be is an expert in our industry, and we have had some stories picked up about things that we're doing that are different, and so I think it's all kind of part of a big marketing campaign, but I don't know all the secrets to it yet.
Everyone's learning.
I know.
I think even the media.
And it always
that covers
changes.
It. Speaking of that, buzzwords. How do you avoid buzzwords? I think oftentimes as a reporter, when I interview someone, and I know what a cloud is, right? And I know what STEM is, and I know some of those things, but not always true for all reporters, not always true for the audience that you're appealing to. How do you avoid speaking buzzword terms when you're just trying to talk to somebody about what you do and not trying to sell your product?
Well, the thing is, in my business, it's kind of bread and butter. I mean,
right.
Security guards, so I don't have a lot of fancy acronyms.
You don't have to say all
right,
those things.
Right.
Did you ever find it a challenge when explaining specific things to have to, explain it to somebody who's not familiar with your industry, or are you pretty much just pitching to people in your industry?
Well, my industry comprises a lot of different businesses and corporations and niches and all that sort of thing. And yes, I guess there are some in, if you kind of throw around the term active shooter, I mean, people might say,
Buzzword.
maybe you know that, maybe you don't.
Right.
So, yeah, you just have to talk one-on-one about those sorts of things.
And speaking of one-on-one, is there one particular person you can think of who's really kind of been your cheerleader, and even if it's your husband or your kids or whatever, that sort of pushed you along this whole journey?
It would definitely be my husband. Yeah, he, we work together.
That's
but
tough, right?
But I do run the company. I do own 100% of it, and actually, he just got an office. We just expanded our office, and he moved into the office. But he didn't even have an office at the company. And to allow me to really run the company and support me in that and really to have this partner in life with the kids has been a wonderful thing.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it without him.
Family endeavor.
Right.
Were you ever scared? I mean, I know you're a security company, right? So that's kind of ironic, but were you ever scared to move forward, or is there any point where you've been like, I don't know anything about what I'm doing, but I'm just pretending, or?
I was scared wasn't something I never was.
That's great.
I think I didn't have time to be scared.
Yeah, elaborate
Maybe
on that,
scared
right?
that the money would run out.
Okay. I think all of us in this room feel that way sometimes.
Right.
So you just moved forward. There was no time to worry too much.
No, because you know what? You're building this company, and you have an infrastructure, and you have an office, and you have people, and you know that you need a certain level of customers to really make it work. Mm-hmm. And at some point, we would look at each other and say, because as hard as it is, you look and say, do we just need to give up and do something else? I could go back to corporate world and do this, and we would look at each other and go, no, we believe in it. We're here for a reason. This is where we need to be, mm-hmm. and we just need to dig in. We just need to dig in a little deeper and find another different customer and just maybe approach it a different way and take another step.
That's awesome. Keep moving forward. For all the folks who are watching us online, these Startup Grind events are all over the world, right? Why Memphis? Why is Memphis the place to be when it comes to starting a business and coming up with a concept and moving that forward in this community?
Well, I just think the market dynamics are incredible. I think you have a lot of dynamic resources that are here, and a lot of collaborative groups, and the energy is here. And there's a chamber group that's come on now, and it's just built and built and built. And so we've become like this hotbed. Then you have different organizations here that have been backed it and behind it, and I just think it's an exciting time.
Yeah, there's a lot of great things going on in this city, and I think there's a culture really that sets people up to be successful. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. A lot of resources.
And speaking of resources and groups, I can't go without saying that you were named Superwoman in Business by the Memphis Business Journal. That was in July of last year.
Yes.
A lot of folks who are just starting out, that's like one of their goals. Did you find that, first off, I'm sure it's humbling, right? To get that.
Absolutely.
Did you find, though, that was also sort of a little bit of, a little boost of like, I'm doing it right. Somebody recognized that I'm doing it right and brought more attention to the fact that you're moving forward as a female woman business owner?
Absolutely. In the first couple of years when you just can't look farther than yourself, it's hard to think about the exteriors. And, you know what you're doing and you know what you're building. But then when somebody comes from the outside and acknowledges that, it is very humbling, and it's just very gratifying to see that you've actually put something together and this company does exist, it delivers a great product.
And people are noticing, right? That's
Right.
pretty cool. Talk a little bit about, for us, kind of what different struggles you find now that you're doing it, right? So you've got 200 employees. You're thinking about what's next. What do you struggle with now that you're up and running? Besides the daily operation side of the business, kind of going, what's next? Where do we reevaluate? What are our new goals?
Well, there's a couple of things. One on the operations side, I'm kind of a perfectionist.
Uh-oh.
So
Most startups are, right? That's what makes them successful.
bringing up the team to start taking over my responsibilities and to pull back in order to push through for a nurse strategy. That's kind of where I am right now, and that's been challenging. And I think that I have some strategic goals, and some are so ambitious that I look and say, not yet, because it would be too much. So how you take the next step, but it not be so consuming that you grow too fast, and
Right.
that's the challenge.
And so how do you determine what is worth moving to the next step and what you should maybe wait on until you're at a better place?
Well, I think that just what makes sense from a resource allocation standpoint. We again, when you're entrepreneurial and growing, you have some scarce resources for management, and so I think this new software technology is a big bite. And I think we'll just absorb that bite before we maybe go into another city or develop an ancillary product, which are on the horizon, but I think need to be about 6 months, 12 months down.
It's almost like you read my mind, because that was going to be my next question. When it comes to where you start, because Memphis is so great, you started in Memphis. At what point is it worth looking outside of the Memphis market, and at what point do you need to keep working on what you got, or does that vary from business to business?
Well, what was important to me when I started my business that was scalable. I wanted the ability for this company to be as big as we could potentially be. And so we do believe that this can be regional and national and huge. And if that is the direction we go, we wanted this to take it to the next level. So we'll see in 5 or 10 years.
Fingers crossed, right?
Yeah.
It'll be worldwide.
Right. Everyone's
going to be calling you. You're going to have to open a tower somewhere. How important is it for you to encourage other people to support local businesses? I would imagine you, being a security company, work with many other local companies to secure their areas, but just encouraging everyone to buy local, to stay local, and to keep that culture moving forward.
Oh, it is huge. It is huge. I mean, the 2 largest companies in my business are not American-based. And, I just think that, if we can look down our supply chain and up and see how we can encourage other businesses, even in my NABO Memphis chapter, when I was moving into my new office, I sought out other women business owners that could provide me a product because it's just important that we all support another. And I would hope that more and more Memphis companies think that way.
Yeah, and not to rule out the men, because they're doing great things too, but there's a struggle, and you look at the numbers, and we are the minority in this situation. So supporting those businesses, but then you said, just talk a little bit more about your leadership role in pushing women forward to continue following their passion and turning that into businesses that are successful across the country.
Well, I think there's a couple of different things that I try to do through the nonprofits that I'm involved in. One is bring in people who have success stories, because that's always an encouragement. But then bring in practical tips, on sales and marketing and finance and that sort of thing. And then bring in people to surround yourself. And I work on those 3 because I just think all are important.
Absolutely, especially moving forward. I think we're about the time where I want to open the floor up for questions. It looks like there's a lot of head nods, and I'm sure there's some curious folks. Does anybody have any questions anywhere? Yeah, go ahead.
So you said for advice to other entrepreneurs to be seeking investment. At what point did investment become crucial, or was it? How did that? work into your startup?
So the folks who are watching us, the question was, at what point was it important to seek investments and move forward with that? Is that correct?
So financing for my business, when you say investments, the funding or
Taking investment dollars from others.
well, here's what I wanted. You know, they call it sweat equity. You know, I have a background where I looked at a lot of business plans and a lot of companies. I have a finance background, which helped me very much in starting my business. And and I saw a lot of mergers and acquisitions and venture funds and that sort of thing. And we decided early on that we wanted to start organically and own 100% of it. So there has been times that we have talked about, could we take it to the next level by bringing in somebody to buy a piece of it? But when you work as hard as we have for the last 4 years, it's hard to let that go. So we just went through that process and decided that we feel like, you know, we've kind of gone to here, and instead of bringing somebody in to buy at this point, because I think it would be an easier sell at this point, that we're going to continue to try to organically grow it and not sell any of the company. And there's two schools of thoughts, because sometimes you can bring that in and that can really take you to the next level. And we may decide in 6 months to a year that we're going to go that route. But right now, it's good old hard sweat equity.
Rewarding.
So you didn't seek anything from SBA?
I did get a working capital loan that was backed by the SBA from my bank, and that really was huge. I don't think I could have grown to the place where I was without that loan. And I did find a finance partner that believed in the business plan, and when we got some new accounts, they were willing to increase my loan. And I do think that's a huge part of it, because I don't think I would be successful today if I didn't have the right financing in place to support the working capital needs of the company. Absolutely.
Question. I've been thinking about sales all day today because I have never done it. So when you started the business, did you have, had you done a lot of market research before going into it? And then how did you approach your first client and then grew from there? Did you have a lot of social connections to help you with, or was it just cold calling and then following on those calls?
So a couple different things. I think that we found 5 things that we did differently that were different in the marketplace. And we kind of put that together as our differentiators. And so when we talked to companies out there, we kind of went back to those 5 things and we pitched ourselves on those 5 things in our media and marketing and such. But we found early on in the research, and that's the thing about businesses, we found that this was kind of a sleepy, traditional industry that didn't have a lot of innovation in it. And so that's what excited me about that. And so when we found some technology that we could put into the business, we pitched that because we thought it would be well received. And it was the difference maker a lot of the times. And so I think that, as you're seeking out businesses, if you can find something where you feel like you can bring something totally different, spin to it, I think it is very appealing. And that's, when I did the market research, that's why I got really excited about it.
And was there a lot of cold calling that you did before? How did you manage to get your leads?
So my husband had been in the business, and so he had developed some networks. But it's interesting, we did get some business for that, but an industry niche that he had been very successful in wasn't really where we found our business. It's almost like we sought out, and I would encourage any entrepreneur, we sought out and took the scraps, if you will. We found some scraps in the marketplace and did a good job with the scraps. And in a couple of cases, it turned into a gold mine. So I think sometimes you have to look for a little crack in the door and do a good job in it and not expect anything more. But when you do a good job, it tends to open up doors. And we have had several success stories that way.
Goes back to never giving up, right?
All right.
Just keep moving forward. Any other questions out there?
What made you decide, without going into detail about your differentiators, unless you want to tell us,
Right.
what made you decide to go for this software development? Because it, as you said, your people are primarily your business,
Right.
in the security world. Because I would think most businesses think boots on the ground, guarding my stuff.
Right.
What made you, as opposed to going the traditional route of cameras and monitors and all that sort of stuff, what made you decide that this software was really an opportunity for you?
Well, what made me decide this is that cameras can only do so much, and so there is really a need for a physical presence a lot of time after hours and on weekends, and to walk through and make sure that there hasn't been a water damage and the facility is leaked and, all these, or you have a person in front of you that's a present. So somebody decides to visit another property for a criminal act. And so each property is different, but at the end of the day, clients are paying a lot of money. And so a lot of times they're paying a lot of money for security to guard a facility when they're not there. And so how can you be sure in the morning that they actually did a round or locked the door or responded this way? Traditionally before you might be handed a paper that said, I did that, but did they really do that? Or did they remember that at 2 o'clock in the morning, the client wanted the gate closed at this exact time? And so what I'm doing is developing a workflow technology that's interactive with the customer. And so we create a whole template that is tailored for each client. And then the officer on duty has a Droid phone or tablet, and it's all right there. If they're unsure, they can pull up a YouTube video of the training. And if by chance they forget to do something, it's like a virtual monitor. So we think that that's going to, at the end of the day, the client will feel like they got a great value and they can see what's being done and they can be communicated with. So that's kind of my spin on it.
Sounds awesome.
That's very cool.
I wanna play
Thanks
around.
for sharing so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Thanks.
I was wondering, who are some of your mentors?
Well, early on, I joined the Society of Entrepreneurs and went to their luncheons and went to the Insight group. And I can tell you one of the big mentors in town and just an amazing man is a man named Mike Bruns. And he is the current chair of the church health center here, was head of youth villages, and founded a business from one truck and grew it into a successful company. And I have learned so much from him. And then I have just met some other women entrepreneurs that are farther along in the process. And I just really enjoy talking with them and seeing their successes and just kind of picking their brains about things, and that's helped me a lot.
What about your favorite books? You said that a lot of what you've done, in addition to the mentoring and attending the luncheons and the workshops through SBA, is reading.
Absolutely. I'll tell you one of my favorite ones is EntreLeadership by Dave Ramsey. He's just written a very practical book, and I keep rereading that because that has such good practical advice in it, and it's a great takeaway. I'm currently reading a book by Carla Harris, and we just brought her into town. She's the head of the National Small Business Council and is a Morgan Stanley managing director, and she is a dynamo. And she just came to town, and she's written a book, Expect to Win, and it talks about this glass ceiling and just the kind of the practical things to push through. And that's a great book as well.
Any other questions out there?
You've talked a lot about that. You've had lots of great mentors, and besides opportunities like this, who else do you look at that's coming up behind you, and how do you encourage them? Certainly, I have been both a protege and a mentor, so having had the benefit of being a protege, now looking to mentor others, where do you look for those, and how do you seek out those opportunities?
Well,
Do you have time?
No, I
Use
do.
that app, right?
You asked what things I do. I really don't do anything but family, work, and NABO, and I've dropped everything else. But we just recently had a collaboration with Startco, and they have 10 young women entrepreneurs that they brought in for the summer, men and women, but they brought 10 of these women who have these great ideas, and they're from New York, and they're going to fast track them, and hopefully these entrepreneurs will stay in town. And they have great ideas and resources, but we have great networking. So we're trying to partner with them on that. And I'm always seeking out different groups to collaborate with, because we just all need to encourage each other along the way. And so I do as much as I can.
Well, and actually, I think that's a good point. You said, you've dropped everything, but those 3 specific things, sometimes we can spread ourselves too thin, to the point where we're not helpful to the
Right.
mentees, we're not helpful to our family or our business.
Right.
How did you come to that? Because I would imagine when you first jumped in, you were like, yes, 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 I'll do all of these things. And then you look back and went, I don't really have time for that, right?
Well, I think that you have to go back to what you said, what you're passionate about. I've been on boards before where I just felt like I was kind of there, and it was just what I was supposed to be doing, but I wasn't really passionate about the cause. And I just think that it's important to just dial it back and just pick a few things that you really care about and do a good job at them.
Absolutely. I think that's sometimes the best advice you can get for someone. That and never give up, right? Are there any other questions out there? All right, so final question I have for you, directed mostly for the folks who are watching this now. When it comes to women who might be sitting there watching this, who've been thinking about an idea in their head, they just don't know what to do next, or they're not certain how to move that forward, what advice do you have to the women that are sitting out there right now who want to move forward, but they just don't know how, or they're afraid to do it?
Well, I would say you really need to put together a great business plan and take it to somebody you respect, and go seek out a customer. And if you are getting a 1, 2, 3 punch, then you need to move forward and take the next step and take the next step and take the next step.
Keep following your passion, right?
Right.
And don't give up.
Right.
Even when it seems like it's a better option. Well, we thank you so much for being here tonight and giving us this insight into what you do. Hopefully we can all move forward and take this on as we want. One quick thing, if folks out there who are watching this want to get in touch with you, they can follow you on Twitter, right?
Yes.
We've got @Clarion Security.
Absolutely.
And contact you that way, as well as some of the links on this website, correct? Well, thank you so much. Round of applause. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.